First of all, I've heard it was an Italian journalist who told you you had won the Nobel Prize. Is it true or is it just fake news?
Oh, you heard that the first person that told me, yes, was an Italian newspaper reporter. I never discovered how they may have found out, because when I asked people in Sweden how that could be, they said this person could not possibly have known because the decision had not been taken.
So he was a very good journalist.
Yes, they just guessed, I think.
How would you explain your research to a child?
Well, it depends whether the child has understood the concept of cells. Do they know that we consist of cells?
Let's assume they do.
Then I would say the question at that time was whether all kinds of cells have the same genes or they don't. That was the question, simple question. And my project was to try to find that out, find the answer from an experimental point of view.
And what was the answer?
The answer was yes.
I have read that your research was somehow linked to cloning. What is this link?
Cloning uses the same procedure. If you can test the answer to the question that I put, you end up with clones. So cloning was a byproduct of doing these experiments. It was not the purpose of the experiment. We did not aim to make a clone. We just wanted to ask if you transplant a nucleus, can it be reversed, made to go back to the beginning of life again? It's not the same as cloning, though cloning comes out of that anyway. So cloning and the answer to the question I put are different things, but the same procedure.
Do you think that in the future we will be able to clone a human being?
I think we will not want to do that. There's good reasons for not doing that. That's what we call reproductive cloning, and there's no use, no value in that for humans. For animals there might be.
There will be no benefits.
That's right. I see no benefit, even if you could clone humans. I cannot understand a benefit of that, just like that. But to derive cells by cloning procedure is another question. That could be very useful.
How?
If you can make cells from skin and turn them into cells for other parts of the body, then you would have a way of doing cell replacement, which would be very useful for people. But you do not have to clone a human being in order to do that. It's not the same thing.
So in which kind of illnesses could that mechanism be used?
What I do is to give the example of taking a piece of skin from an adult human and doing the cloning procedure so that you have lots of cells growing in the laboratory from the skin, and then it is possible to convert those cells into other kinds of cells, like the cells of the eye. And if you can have replacement eye cells from a piece of skin, that would be extremely useful.
As I understand, your lesson this evening will deal also with ethics problems. What's your position?
I think that most of the discussion about ethics is pointless, is of no value. Largely people think all sorts of problems, ethical problems, but I don't think they are real. It's just a matter of the public perception needs to be changed. So I'm not sympathetic to ethical problems.
What was your feeling when you realized your research was working?
My first feeling was that it answered the question I started with. That was important, because in science you always, in my view, want to start with a question. and you hope you can answer the question. And then from then on, other things developed. It became possible to see the value of the answer to the question, which all has to do with cell replacement.
Was it a similar feeling when you discovered you had received the Nobel Prize?
The Nobel Prize came 60 years after I'd done the experiment, so there was lots of time to think about what the experiments might mean. And I was lucky that other people also seemed to think the experiments were interesting and important. It takes time for that to become clear.
My last question. What would you like to say to that biology teacher who told you you could never have become a scientist?
If he was alive, I think he was a bad teacher. He should have seen what interested people and spent time on that. What he did was to give you facts from what he could remember, some of which were wrong, but he was not a good teacher. And other teachers said that also, said he was. So he would be I think if he had been told what happened, he'd say, well, I did my job. My job was to teach this person simple facts, and he couldn't learn them. So that's all I did, was to say he's no good.